For a long time, flaunting wealth was something reserved for the nobility and the world's most powerful families. Events featuring these wealthy individuals captivated society and took up significant media space, often gracing magazine covers and receiving exclusive coverage. With the rise of social media, the right to flaunt became popularized. But even so, some ultra-wealthy individuals continued to steal the spotlight. Showing off a private jet, a million-dollar car, or a trip to exotic locations has become commonplace. However, amid all this display, some billionaires prefer a low-profile life, far from the red carpets and limelight that fame brings. The reasons for this social isolation might simply be a choice for a simpler lifestyle, but in some cases, they relate to the past and origin of the fortune, such is the case of the Quandt family, one of the wealthiest and most powerful in Germany, who do everything they can to stay anonymous while becoming richer every day and hiding the dark past that generated their wealth. How did this family accumulate so much wealth in a way that needs to be concealed? What companies do they control, and how much money do they currently have? If you want to know the answers, keep watching this video, as today we're diving into the mysteries surrounding the Quandt family. Looking at the Quandt family's nearly $50 billion fortune today, one might have no idea it all began in a more humble manner. A family of Dutch origin moved to Germany around the year 1700. However, it wasn't until nearly 2 centuries later that the Quandt story of entrepreneurship truly began, specifically in 1883, when Emil Quandt founded a textile factory in the small town of Pritzwalk, near Berlin. Considered a hard-working businessman, Emil quickly grew the business and acquired other companies in the same industry. One of the secrets to Emil's business success was a contract for his factories to supply fabric for uniforms for the Imperial German Army. This contract, signed in 1890, brought in substantial sums and also established a relationship with the government, which would only deepen over the years. Emil achieved great success in business, but it was nothing compared to the accomplishments of his son and successor, Günther Quandt. Günther began working with his father at an early age, and by 1909, he was already managing several family textile factories. With the outbreak of World War I in 1914, the family secured excellent government contracts, becoming the primary supplier of fabric and leather for the German army. By the end of the conflict, while Germany was devastated, the Quandt family was wealthier than ever. Günther seized emerging opportunities to expand the family empire, acquiring power plants and other companies. Among these acquisitions, Günther bought a majority stake in AFA, which owned battery manufacturer Varta, one of the most important companies in the sector. During this time, he also made significant investments in the automotive sector, purchasing shares in the already established Daimler-Benz, owner of the prestigious Mercedes brand, and BMW, which around 1928 was taking its first steps in automobile production. In business, things were going well for Günther Quandt, but the same can't be said for his personal life, marked by events that would prove decisive not only for the family, but also for modern German history. Günther first married Antonie Ewald, and the couple had 2 sons, Helmut and Herbert. Tragically, the businessman's wife passed away in 1918 at the age of 34, and his eldest son, Helmut, also died tragically a few years later. After these tragedies, Günther remarried, this time to Magda Ritschl, who was half his age. From this union, another heir, Harold, was born. The marriage lasted about 8 years, and after it ended, Magda remarried. This might seem like a minor detail in the family's story, but Magda went on to marry Joseph Goebbels, who would become the all-powerful Nazi Germany Minister of Propaganda. Despite reports of some animosity between Goebbels and Günther, this didn't prevent Günther from strengthening his ties with Adolf Hitler's government, which began rising to power in 1933. Günther and his son Herbert joined the Nazi Party, while Harold, who was practically raised by Goebbels and his mother, served in the German forces, fighting in battles during World War II. The close connection between the Quandt family and the Nazi regime is evident, as Günther was appointed leader of the military economy, a prestigious position granted by Hitler himself. But was this the family's only involvement with the Nazi government and its atrocities? By the start of World War II, the family's position had evolved significantly. With all their investments during the interwar period, the Quandts supplied not only fabrics, but also provided the German army with a range of other products. In this context, besides supplying soldiers, uniforms, and blankets, the family manufactured weapons and ammunition, and thanks to their acquisition of AFA, as mentioned earlier, they even produced propulsion batteries for the submarines and missiles used by the Nazis. Engaging in business with governments and supplying military equipment is relatively common in the business world, and many major entrepreneurs have built their fortunes this way. However, in the Quandts case, this relationship went further. According to an article published in the New York Times, the family took advantage of the persecution of Jews to acquire several businesses at prices well below their true value. Furthermore, the same article indicates that companies led by Gunther and his son Herbert used forced labor from over 57,000 people in their factories. Herbert Quandt himself was reportedly involved in planning and constructing a concentration camp in Poland, though it was never completed. With Germany's defeat in World War II and the division of the territory among the Allied powers, one might expect that the Quandts and other dynasties that supported Hitler would be punished for their actions. However, the reality was quite different. The family patriarch, Gunther Quandt, was imprisoned in 1946, but was acquitted just 2 years later, leaving him free to continue leading his business ventures. Like many other industrialists accused of war crimes, Gunther was acquitted with the argument that he was merely a follower, and that his actions lacked any personal ideology or motivation. This group was also referred to as fellow travelers, a term indicating that, while they participated in various atrocities, they were supposedly only following the orders of those who truly orchestrated the expedition. There is a significant debate surrounding the reasons behind these acquittals, and some scholars argue that economic considerations heavily influenced the trials. One such voice is David de Jong, author of Nazi Billionaires, who asserts that the Nuremberg trials were flawed, and that behind the acquittals lay the goal of maintaining West Germany's economy stronger than the part controlled by the Soviet Union. Gunther took full advantage of this freedom, remaining at the helm of his businesses for several more years until his death in 1954. After the patriarch's death, Herbert and Harold took over the businesses, dividing the responsibilities between them. Generally, Harold oversaw the Quandt family's industrial holdings, while Herbert managed the battery and automotive factories. Despite the acquittal of crimes and their numerous business ventures, the family has always tried to remain unnoticed, working more behind the scenes than in the public eye. From a business perspective, the family's portfolio was enviable. In addition to owning over 65% of the battery manufacturer Varta, they controlled nearly half of the equipment maker EVUK and held significant stakes in many other companies, such as Daimler-Benz. Among their numerous successful ventures, one stood out for its risk of bankruptcy. The family owned about 30% of BMW, a company founded in 1917 to manufacture aircraft engines. Over the years, BMW began producing motorcycles and cars, but in the post-World War II period, it was nearly bankrupt. The situation was so dire that a takeover by Daimler-Benz seemed inevitable. However, Herbert defied all recommendations and decided to bet on the company, increasing his stake to over 50% in 1959. With control of the company, Herbert changed its leadership and got personally involved in its management. A few years later, in 1962, the revolutionary BMW 1500 sedan hit the market, achieving great commercial success, and is still remembered as the car that saved the company from bankruptcy. In the end, Herbert's bet paid off, and his stake in the company made the family even wealthier. As expected, this success attracted much attention to the businessman, but he always maintained the family's characteristic discretion. During his time managing part of the family business, Herbert Quandt dealt with the death of his brother and the division of assets. Harold died in a plane crash in 1967, and his wife and daughters inherited, among various businesses, the majority of the Quandt stake in Daimler-Benz. This branch of the family also seeks to avoid fame, especially given their lineage to someone who was directly connected with Hitler, as the stepson of Joseph Goebbels. According to the Jerusalem Post, all of Harold's living heirs have an estimated fortune of $18 billion. Returning to Herbert, when he died in 1982, his vast business empire was divided among his 6 children, born from 3 different marriages. In addition to all the companies mentioned throughout this video, he also owned the chemical and pharmaceutical company Altana, not to mention stakes in various others across multiple sectors. The crown jewel of the Quandt empire, BMW, was left to Herbert's last wife, and the couple's 2 children. According to a report from the German portal Deutsche Welle, Herbert Quandt spent his last years organizing his empire and planning the division of his assets to avoid family disputes that might jeopardize the family fortune. Apparently, the plan worked, and the family upheld its century-old tradition of doing business, making money, and staying in the shadows. But how long could they stay hidden? And how do younger generations handle the family's dark past? Shortly after Herbert's death, his widow, Johanna Quandt, took on a prominent role in the business, holding high-ranking positions at both BMW and Altena. Her wealth grew considerably until she became Germany's wealthiest woman. Even so, she was virtually unknown in the country and led a completely reclusive lifestyle. After her retirement, her children, Suzanne and Stefan, became the visible faces of the family, or somewhat visible, as both continue the family tradition of avoiding public exposure. Nevertheless, despite all efforts, the family's past came to light in 2007 with the release of the documentary The Silence of the Quandts. The documentary's authors conducted over 5 years of research and, in thousands of documents, uncovered the entire family history. From that point on, German society began to understand the past of one of the country's wealthiest and most powerful families, capable of deciding the future of hundreds of thousands of people. They may also have understood the reasons behind their aversion to public appearances. The documentary revealed the use of thousands of forced laborers in the family's factories, as well as torture inflicted on many to meet production targets. The initial reaction from Gunther and Herbert's heirs was denial. In statements at the time, Stefan Quandt claimed the documentary was a hoax that tainted the legacy of his ancestors. But, in the face of potential damage to the family's image and businesses, the Quandts decided to hire a historian to investigate their past. After 3 years, the study merely confirmed what the documentary had already revealed. Even so, the family made no gesture of apology or attempt to make amends. Stefan Quandt spoke about the issue only once, and while he partially acknowledged his grandfather's crimes, including the use of forced labor, he was careful to defend his ancestor, asserting that he was neither anti-Semitic nor a promoter of war. Actions speak louder than words, and it took over a decade and many demands for the family to modify Herbert Quandt's biography on the official website of an award named after him. Despite partially admitting the crimes, the headquarters of the group is still named after Gunther Quandt, and the family annually sponsors a journalism award named after Herbert Quandt. By keeping part of their past in the shadows, the Quandts remain one of the richest families in the world, ranking 14th on Bloomberg's 2023 list, with a fortune of nearly $50 billion. According to a ranking by Statista.com, Stefan holds a fortune of just over $24 billion, making him the 4th richest German, while his sister, Suzanne, is close behind in 5th place, with approximately $23 billion. A family that indeed has much to hide, much like the Brels, an American construction dynasty that grows wealthier with every tragedy. Thank you very much for watching all the way through. Best regards, and see you in the next video.